So this seems to be a bit of a remake of a video I did previously, but the previous video was a extended version of how to create an offset and how to use booleans to cut out if you're creating complicated shapes. But I realized there are people that want to create a simple 1, 2, or 3 offset structure and be able to get there quickly and be able to have a bit of flexibility. So we are now on version 1.7 of the Affinity range. Simply love the fact that publishers in the arsenal of tools that we have now. I thought that Affinity Designer, which is my favorite program, would have come in version 1.7 at least with an offset tool, but it's not there. So I thought I'd sort of just put this out there for now. This might become redundant when they develop an offset tool. But for those of you who don't know what an offset tool is, let me just do a sort of simple example of the dilemma that we would find ourselves in without being able to do offsets. So if I had a structure there, let me see, maybe make that blue. So if I had a structure like this and I wanted to create an offset, which means I wanted a structure just like this towards the inside, but usually it's because of a different color we want to put in there. And that's done when you're doing, shields. We have the outline of the shield and then there's a effect towards the inside and so forth. How do you go about doing it? In Illustrator, they used to have a button that you click offset, and then you'd say, I want the offset to be a copy, so to format a copy for you. How do we do that quickly in Illustrator? I'll just show you first the problem. So if we had to try and use a method of copy and paste, Control-C, Control-V, I'm creating another layer and just change the color. So I have a red one on top of a blue one. Now I'm going to proportionately size this down. So at this point, it kind of looks believable that I could. Now I'm proportionately sizing it to the center of this red object, but you can see this is the challenge that we have. It's determining the center here, so it's literally not being able to offset it. Here does it beautifully on this side. Then it goes a little bit off here. Here it's off the mark. Here it hasn't even moved off. This is terrible, terrible, terrible. So we literally can only use one side of this object as a offset. So how do you overcome this? If this was a circle, it wouldn't be a problem, because a circle, when you size it, it would proportionately go down and you'd be able to create it easily. So if this was, let's say this was a circle here, I could do a control, instead of Control-C, you can do Control-J also, it will also duplicate, and I could do the same and maybe change the color. So there I could do a perfect setup because all the sides are equal around there. It's proportionate in that way. So within a circle, there's probably an exception that you can do offsets easily. I can even make Control-J, another copy of that, and change the color. So I can keep on doing that and they'll all look like they're offsets from each other. But that is not possible with a shape that is not a circle. Even a square has a challenge if you go with a square. So we do that, and I'm going to go Control-J, making a copy of that and change it to red. If I keep the proportions down, can you see what's happening? It might be proportionate on the side, touching there, but it looks like it's got a space here. So anything but a circle won't work with this kind of copy and proportionately size. So how do we overcome it? I want to show you a quick way of being able to manipulate it. The one reason why I think sometimes the guys are getting a bit sort of uptight with not having an offset tool and it should have been out and all that is because the process seems to be so long. I want to show you a quick way in which you can create the offsets. Now the offsets that I'm going to create it's basically the ability to create one offset. So there's one shape and then you can create another same shape within that shape or with outside the shape, whatever, but it's 2 different layers, and then one that you can have 3 layers. And the beauty of this method is that it's kind of parametric. By that I mean you can adjust the buttons and they will be able to be proportionately shaped. So let me show you what I mean. If I'm going to go, I'm going to just use the center. I've got the snap tool on. For those who have watched any videos that I've done previously, I usually promote the fact of doing the things straight because of how Affinity works, that you can go and then shape these tools accordingly. So yeah, so I'm just going those two, make them more maybe smooth. Okay, I shouldn't be spending too much time on this, but now let me just do that little tweak in there. There we go. Okay, let's say that that is the shape of our shield, half of our shield. And then I want to just create another copy. So I'm going to go Control J of that. So they're laying on top of each other. I'll just use the horizontal flip and then keep Shift down to constrain it as I move it across. Now it doesn't matter where I drop it with this, because the snap is on, it will snap to that point. But even if I drop it there, if I select these two, I can go to the space horizontal. You see those two lines. So when I click there, it's on auto distribute, so it will stay there. If I disable this, it will default to 0 pixels, and I can set the additional pixels. But look what happens if I click there. It snaps to 0 pixels between the two objects. And that's what I want to say. Okay. And once I have these two objects, keep Shift down and select both, I can say add them. And that's a Boolean function. Okay, I'm going to move this line out of the way. Just an interesting thing, don't be scared to experiment when you're moving certain corners, and so press Control Alt, press Control Alt Shift, different combinations. You learn quite a bit. Like here, if I just grab and I do this, and Control Z, it does the one side. But if I press Control and Alt and I do that, it brings it from both sides. So experiment as you go along. Okay, so this is the technique that I'm proposing here. Now if I go to this line, I just want to see the stroke. The stroke I've got on mitre 5. If it's on a smaller number, you'd find maybe the edges, when you end a stroke, it will be rounded off, and if you want that, that's fine. But for our purposes, we're going to go with 5, which makes these edges nice and sharp. So now if I wanted to have a shield like this with another color on the inside, okay, inside or outside, it's just relative to wherever you're starting. So I want you to look at this line. You'll notice something, that the outline here is on the outside and the stroke is towards the inside. And if we look at it here under the stroke panel, you'll see a line. That's the one that we're actually using. If you hover over there, it says align stroke to inside. If I click here, look what happens. You're going to see this flip to the outside. If I click this one, you're going to see it flips into the center. And those three things are the key to creating fast offsets. Okay, so let me show you. So we've got this one. I'm going to just name this one, let's call it inside. And then I'm going to press Control J. So I'm creating a second one, which is a duplicate on this one, but I'll call this one outside. Okay, so there's inside, outside. Now outside, I'll change the color, then we've got a bit of a different reference. So that's outside and inside, and these are strokes. There's no fill in colors. You know, this area is blank, it's transparent. So what I'm going to do is the inside one, I am going to go to the stroke, and by align, I'm going to let it align stroke to inside. Can we see what's happening there? However, this outside one is still using the middle as its reference. So it's putting color of the stroke towards the inside and outside. So to get it fully on the outside, we will select that, and then we will go to outside stroke, and there we go. And there we have it. That's it. Okay, if you're thinking, okay, but now if I want this thing further to the inside, it's as simple as going to the inside now, because it's defaulting towards the inside, and the outside defaulting towards the outside. And this is parametric in that you can size it accordingly. And the beauty is, if you select both of them now, you can go Control Alt, and you can size them to what size you want to. Control Shift Alt, constrain it nicely. So that's how you could create an offset. Now, I said at the start that I will show you how to do 3 methods or 3 offsets. Now, if you wanted to move it, you can see they're totally independent because these are 2 different areas. Because the outline over there is perfectly aligned with each other. However, if I wanted to have, for example, a white area that went around, then what I could do is, I'm going to just make this a bit thicker, take the outside, make it a bit thicker. And then what I'm going to do is I could take outside or inside and duplicate it. I'm going to select the outside or the inside here. And, let me just show you that if you're on the layers, you can select them here. But if you're on the objects, often clicking here, you don't know what you're clicking on. So if you want to click through the different selections, you press Alt and you click, you'll see it will jump. You see there it jumps to inside. If I click there, again, it jumps to the next one. So it will go through layers if you keep Alt and click on the object itself. Okay, but here we're going to come here and click here and Control J to create another one. And I'm going to just call this one middle. Now the middle one I know is probably going to be in between these 2, in between the red and the yellow. So I would prefer or assume that it needs to be right on top towards us. It's got to be on the top so that if it's going to cut through both of them, we can actually see it. It's not hiding behind the objects. So I can shift it up the layers here, or I can just get onto that layer and come here to the arrangement and say move to front. Okay, so I'm bringing it to the front and I'm going to change that, say, to a blue. Now the reason why the blue is all towards the inside, you could have guessed, I copied the inside version, so it's using reference from that line towards the inside. So if I brought it to the front, so I'm going to go up to the stroke now, and there you can see it's still referencing to the inside. I'm going to say reference it from the center out and the center in. If I click there, boom, there we have it. Okay, so this line is referencing in and out. That yellow one is referencing from the line outwards, and the red is from that line. So you see there's a matter of overlapping here. In the other video, I cover how to Boolean cut each other from, cut the one shape from the other and so forth. I'm not going to entertain that now. I'm just showing you how most of the time you can get to this as a great result for editing. So if we wanted yellow, red, and a white stripe in between, we now have middle. We can go change that to white. There we go. And if we want to make this line be a bit further down, it's as easy as we'll go to the red stroke and we will make it a bit bigger, and then we'll go to the white one, which is the middle, make it a bit bigger that way, and the outside one we can go and make that bigger. Okay. Or we could do basically anything we want to. So that's the feature. We can create that look. And what is beautiful is that like working parametrically, you're moving a slider and seeing the effect that happens along the way. So that is it. I know this is not a very very pretty shield, but let's just maybe take it about there and take the inside a little bit closer down. But here we literally now have 3 layers offset perfectly with each other. So just remember now, if you want to take it further, have a look at the other tutorial. I have no idea where it is on YouTube. It's in my channel somewhere. But if you want to start adding gradients and transparencies, it's best to cut them out from each other and have them as 3 cutouts. One thing is, the way to get there is going to be when you select the object, because the objects you are working on here are strokes. You've got to convert them into you've got to expand the stroke, and when you expand the stroke, you no longer have a stroke in here. You have a thin stroke or a stroke on the outside, a stroke here on the inside, and that will be considered as a fill color. Let me just show you what I mean. If I go in there and I'm just selecting the red area and I'm going to say expand the stroke, you'll notice here now that this fill color has taken the color over there. So now if I go and I change the stroke color, I'm going to just move this way. You can see if I now change the stroke. It's now that full color has a stroke on the outside and inside. That's after I go and I click expand stroke. So you could sort of play around with, you know, the different options that exist with it. I'm going to just Control Z with that. The original that we were working with, we're always working with strokes. The power with working with strokes is that it's parametric. You can keep shaping it along the way. Of course, if you're going to add gradients into any of these, then you pretty much have to convert them. So I'm going to just move this way, and let me just show you what I mean. If you were going to put some gradient into this outside curve, I would have had to come here, expand the stroke, and when you expand it now, you have a full color and a outline, and in that way I could then go and create a gradient inside the actual area. Okay, so then it becomes now a full area, and then you can play around with gradients and transparency and so forth. But this is not for that purpose. Let me just move it right back where we yeah. Okay, so to get to that area, if you're creating a shield, pretty much revision is you have 3 of the same. Take the one shape, duplicate it 3 times, make 1 offset to outside, 1 offset to inside, and 1 offset to middle, and then you pretty much have a 3, if I can call it a 3-tier offset tool. And you'd be able to get most of the offset features that you need. Most of the things you need to do with offsets, you can get it from using these 3. When you're going beyond this, then it will take now a bit more intricate duplicating and, you know, working with other sort of tools. But pretty much I think this would help you get along the way, to get quickly going with anything that you want to do as regards to offsets. Okay, so hopefully that has helped, and have a fantastic day, and God bless.